Welcome to On the Fringe Media. I'm your host, Angela Thomas. Today's guest, Craig Campobasso, casting director, screenwriter, director, producer, and filmmaker of the recent movie Stranger at the Pentagon. Welcome to the show, Craig.
Thank you so much. I'm very happy to be on with you today.
Well, we're happy that you are. And Craig, I have to tell you, I'm very excited to be speaking with you today because when I saw Stranger at the Pentagon, I was floored. I was floored at what and where that information came from. Can you share with our audience what Stranger at the Pentagon is all about?
Sure. It's actually from a book that came out first in 1967, written by Dr. Frank Stranges, who met a created being, a universal emissary, in December of 1959 at the Pentagon, who was under VIP status from President Eisenhower since March 16th, 1957, and he would depart on March 16th, 1960. So the film is actually a short film. It was a film I had met Dr. Frank in around 2001, 2002. Never intended to make the film, but I met him because I had read his book. We were introduced, and we just had a kinship, and I saw him regularly. Somebody else wanted to make it into a film. He asked me to go with him. I said, of course I would, because I've been in the film business my whole time. And as you know, when you're not, it's very difficult to sort of put the wheat through the chaff.
Sure.
So I went with him. I told him this wasn't something that should be done, and not to get involved. And anyway, long story short, I ended up sitting with him for several years, hearing his stories, and wrote a feature-length screenplay. And what we do nowadays is to raise money for big feature films. One film that I was one of the casting directors on, Sky Captain and the World of Tomorrow, with Jude Law and Angelina Jolie and Gwyneth Paltrow, that was made into a short film, and they raised their money independently to make it. So that's how things are done these days. So I decided to do the same thing. I never intended to show it, but once everybody found out that I was making it, everybody wanted to see it. So that's when I put it in some festivals, which we won as well. So
right. In fact, I understand that it got Best Sci-Fi.
It's a fascinating story, and the big feature film script will revolve around Valiant Thor's 3 years at the Pentagon and what happened during those 3 years. So he came with a divine design to eliminate sickness, disease, poverty, to prolong life, to really talk to them about the dangers of atomics, since they had been setting them off in the 40s, and the dangers that it not only proposes to this planet, but to all the planets throughout the universe, and decided to also, while he was here, to sort of give them a universal course, so to speak, on these types of things. Now, here's the most interesting thing, and I'll have all your listeners Google it. Nixon wrote, now remember, Nixon was vice president at the time, and Valiant Thor and Nixon had the most interaction since Eisenhower was quite busy with a lot of other things. So they had an interaction that was weekly, and Nixon actually recently wrote, I believe right after Watergate, he wrote a time capsule. And this information has just been released, and I'm just going to read you a little tidbit because it's quite fascinating what he actually says here. And we're still doing some more investigating on a lot of the other stuff that goes along with this. So, let me just pulled it up here. All right. In 1972, President Nixon read out loud a letter to the American people about an advanced being from somewhere else in our universe, or perhaps even from a different universe, that the U.S. government had in protection and which was teaching some scientists vast quantities of powerful information about physical laws and an equation that could help all of humanity.
Wow.
How's that?
Wow. So let me ask you, Craig, did what Nixon wrote, did it ever make the public?
It did. If you Google Nixon time capsule,
right,
all of the information will show up. I believe that Linda Moulton-Howe broke the story on Coast to Coast about a month ago, and then a lot of other things picked it up. So I'm still doing a lot of investigating on it there. Valiant Thor isn't mentioned by name, but I am sure at some point there has to be some kind of information that will link him, because that is right there is the sitting proof that he was there as well. Plus there's other eyewitnesses that Dr. Frank had met, who, besides Dr. Frank, who had met Valiant Thor, and then continued a friendship with him up until his death in 2008.
You mean Dr. Frank Strange's death?
Yes,
okay,
the writer of Stranger at the Pentagon, yes.
So, what fascinates me the most about this very unique story, Craig, is the fact that here we have, and I'll just use alien, right?
Yeah.
Meeting with the leader of the free world in Washington, D.C. So can you take us to how that actually happened? How does an alien and I believe that Valiant Thor is a huge commander, so how, as far as you know, did he contact the president, and how did that go at Eisenhower's meeting with Valiant Thor?
Well, there were precursors of messengers who came to let him know that a universal emissary was coming to meet with him, and his duration would be several years, to be there, to be a voice box of the universe, so you will, of how things are set up and really how things are run to keep order amongst all worlds and all of that. And anyway, so they knew that he was coming. What I don't know is if they knew the date. Because he did arrive on a Saturday morning at 8 a.m. in an agricultural field in Alexandria, Virginia.
Right, right over the bridge from D.C.
And then when the cop car pulled up, he spoke to the police, and they took him to the Pentagon. So,
amazing.
So there's a gray area in there of how it all really worked, but they did know that he was coming, and the people that I have spoken with who have met Valiant Thor said that it was the most unbelievable experience ever. It would probably equal to seeing. Well, he's. I would look at him as a high seraphim. An angel in human form. He's a created being. Created beings can create their bodies at will, and they create them the way that would look, that would be the less, not menacing, but that everyone would take to. In other words, it's like when we meet somebody and they have a certain look or a certain feel,
Sure.
that type of thing. So he made himself look this way. And I don't know if he's looked this way from the beginning, if he looks that way in spirit form, or how all of that works. But I just found it to be really unique in that sense, because he has full divine power as well.
Wow. And what really surprises me is that you use the term angel compared to alien, because many of us believe that angels are angels and aliens are aliens, and you cannot be both, unless of course you take alien literally, as a foreign individual or entity. So let me just say, I know I've been privy to see some of Valiant Thor's photographs that were taken during the time that he was at the Pentagon, and let me just say, I mean, what a handsome 30-ish looking man. And so I guess as an angel, we already know that angels can, take form any way that they want to. But what makes, let's say, Valiant Thor's appearance different? I mean, how would I know that Valiant Thor is just not some, let's say, individual claiming to be?
Well,
how do we know this?
He didn't have handprints or fingerprints.
No handprints, no fingerprints.
He spoke many languages. Mm-hmm. When you would converse with him, you knew that he was not from here. You knew that he was somewhere in this older echelon of the universe.
Wow.
You could feel him look into your soul, read its entire soul history, and you would know it.
Okay, so now
That's
I want to...
That's the difference. Now, women who have met him all said the same thing, and they hadn't met each other. Mm-hmm. They told me he had a pheromone about him that when you were near him, it was like ingesting angelic peace.
Wow. So now I want to get a little personal with your involvement with Stranger at the Pentagon. I know at one point... you were writing a trilogy and so on and so forth. And did you say, or did I misunderstand, Craig, that you were channeling Valiant Thor?
Well, to put everything in a very, because of time constraints.
Sure.
When I was 26, I had a major spiritual awakening with master teachers.
Gotcha.
That were not from here.
Right.
And they raised me for about 2 years to catch up to speed, and it was the most beautiful experience, because it was opening up your entire selves to the entire presence.
Right.
And feeling the unconditional love behind everything created. So I began writing the Autobiography of an Extraterrestrial Saga trilogy back in the mid-'80s. So my experience was, when these master teachers would come through, they would come through and they would put their feeling body inside my body as I wrote, so I could feel all of who they were on the inside in their soul.
Oh, fascinating.
So when I was writing Stranger at the Pentagon, I had the same exact experience with Valiant Thor and the team and the vice commanders and other commanders as well. It's feeling who they are now. Like Valiant Thor or other created beings and things like that, you literally go into such deep sobbing because you just can't believe how beautiful their souls are.
Oh my
goodness. You
goodness.
just can't believe how immaculate and it's a love that's felt. You can't even explain it.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, Craig, do you feel that Thor, or someone like Thor, has chosen you to be the one to bring awareness to the world about his and others like him, their existence?
Well, I don't know about that, but I do know that when I moved into my condo, which was in 2001, I hadn't read the book for many, many years, and I hadn't even thought about it. But when I set up my couches, I'm an empath, so I can see and feel energies and sometimes see them if they reveal themselves.
Right.
I even have stuff caught on film, which is amazing. And I kept seeing Valiant Thor and his vice commander's energy signatures every day sitting on my couches, and I had no idea what that meant. And for months I kept saying, I don't understand why I'm feeling this.
Sure.
And then I'm a casting director by profession as well.
Right.
And my casting partner said, oh, my friends, I've been wanting you to meet are coming into town, and they see UFOs all the time. You'll have a lot in common with them. And when I met them, the wife said, well, you know, our friend, Dr. Frank, she had this sweet little southern accent. And I said, strangers? And she said, yes, you want to meet them?
Wow.
And I didn't put two and two together until I sat down with Dr. Frank to start writing the scripts, and I was saying, oh, that's why I was feeling their presence there, is they were making the connection.
That is absolutely fascinating, Craig.
Isn't it?
It is very fascinating. So do you or do others know if Valiant Thor is still alive?
Dr. Frank said that he is still here, that I have not had the pleasure of meeting him in person. I welcome that just like everybody else. But Dr. Frank said he is still stationed at Lake Mead in his Victor class saucer, which is called Victor 1. It's 300 feet in diameter, 97 feet from top to bottom. It's double-deckered, and each Victor saucer holds 200 people, and they are stationed in and around 187 locations around the Earth. He built a mothership that's 14 miles long and 7 miles wide that is up in Earth's atmosphere, where there are lots of universal beings. He is here for the long duration to see that Earth is brought into its full divine self. So there is a very big angelic presence. Now, as I told you before, I'm empathic. I know you're very psychic. We've talked on the phone prior to this interview, and over the last 2 to 3 weeks, I have felt such an angelic presence on this earth like I've never felt in my life.
Well, I'm coming to your house, Craig.
Okay, you can.
So before we wrap up this interview, do you know whether or not, or did Valiant Thor ever mention where he is from? I mean, could we track a star path or anything?
Well, here's what I think, and again, this is just my own intuition about it. For the longest time, Dr. Frank had always said that he had a home on the interior of Venus, and that all of the planets are actually populated on the interior because they also set resonation fields, and that's how they all stay young. Us living on the surface, we get all of the rays, and we age, and all of that. Plus, we have all the interferences of weather and bombardment. So they all of this technology was given to me, and it's all in the Autobiography of an Extraterrestrial Saga books. But I believe that he is from. When I see it, I believe that he is from the Pleiades, or that is another part of where his home is. But I can't confirm or confirm it because. It's just what I feel on the inside.
Sure. Well, Craig, can you tell our listeners how they can reach you?
Sure. They can watch the short film, get the books and movie and posters and all of that on strangeratthepentagon.com. And if they want, my book trilogy is the Autobiography of Extraterrestrial Saga. If they want to get autographed copies, they can go to Autobiography of ANET.com, and I'm happy to personalize them and autograph them. I just have book one on audio now on Amazon, but they're on Kindle and all that stuff on Amazon as well.
Wow. Well, Craig, it's been a pleasure. I hope to have you back in the near future, and good luck with the feature film, the lengthy film. And so, again, if you wish to read more about Craig Campobasso, Stranger at the Pentagon, go to strangeratthepentagon.com. Good day.